Hello, this is Douglas Robinson, and in this video we're going to be demonstrating a new update to our Blueprint Merge application. This new update is going to allow us to publish blueprints directly into Cherwell using a new command line interface. Basically, we'll be able to scan blueprints out of a folder like we did previously. Wrong folder. So we'll go into our documents, select blueprints, scan the blueprints. Now, previously, we'd pick a folder or a file path for these blueprints to be merged together into a single file. We click this button to merge them together. With this new update, we have a new series of options at the bottom of the screen where we can publish them directly into Cherwell, and we have options for scanning these blueprints. You can choose to scan all of the blueprints by unchecking all of these. You can ignore scanning for every blueprint. You can choose to only scan the last blueprint in the series, which is what I personally do when I have hundreds of blueprints to scan. There's an option here to show a console. This doesn't really do anything, but since this is publishing into Cherwell using a command line interface, you have to exit that command line interface in order to cancel this because this application is going to freeze while you're publishing. That's not super important. I would generally recommend checking this box, and we're going to have it set up to where it's default once we release it. And then you also have an option to publish the rollbacks for the items that you've scanned. Now what this does is it goes backwards through this list, finds the rollback for each file, and publishes it instead. This is useful if you've published all of your blueprints and you realize that you have an issue. You can check this box and it will go back through every one and it'll publish all of the rollbacks. Now the blueprints I have in this list, they're fairly simple. On my environment right now, if we open up our incident form, it's blank. Each of these blueprints adds a corresponding number to the form on our incident. So test3.vp adds a 3 to the section off on the right hand side of the screen. Test2 and test1 put a 2 and a 1 on the right side of the screen. That way we know which one of these has been published. I'll go ahead and open up the other ones so we can see that. And then we'll try publishing these out. So there's a 1 there for our test1 blueprint. So basically what we're going to do, once we have our items scanned here, we're going to have it scan the last blueprint in the series, and we can show this console as well. We're going to select Publish Blueprints directly to Cherwell. This is going to prompt you for a connection. Now, every connection on your system in the All Users tab is going to be shown here. It's very important that you only use a 2-tier connection because the command line interface they have right now for publishing and doing other things, integrating into Cherwell, is actually going to require that you use a 2-tier instead of a 3-tier connection. That'll be noted in the release notes. So we're going to pick our Cherwell dev connection. There's a spot for a username and a password, and you can also save these credentials if you're going to be using this a lot. We'll select that. And then over here on this other section of the screen, we have a console window that pops up. And this is actually just a command line window that's being used to publish blueprints into Cherwell. Now, if you look in the documentation for Cherwell on version 9.5 and above, there is a Commandline Configure.exe utility. That's what we're using to publish these blueprints. Ignore the little section at the bottom right of my screen. And that's basically we're going through every blueprint in the list and we're publishing them directly to Cherwell using this command line interface. So we have a progress bar. The idea here with this new update is going to be that you have a safe published directly into Cherwell. So we're not manually creating a blueprint that contains all of your changes. Instead, we're removing the work that's being done for each blueprint published. So normally you'd have to open each blueprint one by one and you'd click publish, you'd hit ignore scanning, maybe ignore conflicts, you'd hit publish, you'd wait for it to scan. If you are scanning, you'd have one or more pop-ups that you have to manage. You'd wait until it finishes publishing. You get the publish complete, you click that, then you open up the next blueprint and recycle a couple hundred times. This is going to automate that. So you're still going through all of the standard, safe, and supported publishing steps, like, publishing it through Cherwell's administrator tool. This actually goes through the Commandline Configure application that's provided with Cherwell 9.5 and above, so you don't have to worry about using an external tool where publishing a blueprint isn't really supported because it's some weird Frankenstein monster of a blueprint. And as I'm babbling on, you can see this is actually cycling through each of our blueprints here. It's starting out with our test1.bp file, and if we scroll down after this is done, we'll see it goes to 2 and 3, and then it finishes up. There is a log of items that are happening here, and if there's an error that's presented, it's going to be pasted into this log, and if an error is shown before the publish finishes, it'll actually stop publishing, and it'll put in this log as well, and you'll get a pop-up about that. So it's going to be a pretty easy tool to use, and it's going to be much safer than using the blueprint merge functionality for those of you that are a little too queasy about that, because I have had some people, ask me about that, like, hey, why do you have 3, 4, 5 disclaimers all over the place about, this is not really supported by Cherwell and it's creating a custom file? Well, the reason is, we didn't want people to go and work on their system, or to go and use this tool which does some custom work to create blueprints, and then something happens and they say, hey, you didn't tell us about this. This one should be future-proof as well if they make some huge change to how these blueprints are constructed. Since this is going directly through Cherwell, we're very confident that this will always work 100% of the time, no matter what's going on. We haven't really had many bugs with the blueprint merge functionality, but for those people that are concerned about the 100 or so disclaimers on our store page, this is for you. So the last blueprint that we have here in this list is actually being scanned, because we checked this box that says only scan the last blueprint, which is why it's taking a little bit longer. I would resize this so that we can scroll through this, but this form is actually like frozen while the blueprint's being published due to the way that we have to connect to this interface. We weren't able to make this like an async function. It is actually waiting for this command line prompt to close out. Alright, so at this point, our blueprints have finished publishing. We can look at the log here that's produced. If you have a lot of blueprints, this is going to be a long log file, but it's useful. So we can see here for our blueprints, it's actually running an upgrade command with each one of these due to the way that they set up the command line configure action. This isn't going to be harmful to your connection at all. It probably just increases the amount of time it's going to take to use it. But it goes through publishing each blueprint. It makes sure that the connection's valid. It signs in. It checks this blueprint file to make sure it's a valid blueprint file for some reason. I think that happens in the background when you open it up originally. And then it starts publishing it, creates a rollback. Now, the rollback thing is important. When we used the blueprint merge previously, we didn't create rollbacks because of the way that we were generating that blueprint file. And previously, if you used the blueprint merge functionality, what we would have said was, if you had to roll this back, you'd have to use the original rollbacks from your dev environment, which could have been problematic if your dev environment and your prod environment weren't in sync. This new functionality is actually going to create rollbacks on the environment that you're using for each blueprint that's being published, and that is very important, and we're very happy about that because it should make this tool a lot safer for each of the new people that are going to be using it. After this, blueprint publish is complete. Next, we move on to the next blueprint publish, and you actually see dates and times on these as well. This is our test 2 blueprint. Same old story of scrolling through here. You'll notice it includes warnings for blueprint conflicts. This isn't going to stop anything. There's an option to have it stop on conflicts, but by default we're having this set up not to just to ignore conflicts, because honestly it's not at the level that it would really be useful. At the next point, we have another publish for our test 3 blueprint. At this point, we're actually scanning this blueprint for errors. If there are any errors that come up, it will stop before it goes to any others. So if you have those 2 checkboxes for ignoring scanning off, then it will scan every blueprint and it will stop upon any errors. After it finishes with that, we see publish complete. Our progress bar is done. We can close this out. And now, if we go back into our administrator tool, we click create a new blueprint. I don't know if this updates in real time or if I have to close this out. So here we have our form update. it has the last control that we placed in that last blueprint on there from our test 3 blueprint, and that's it. That's all there is to it. Now, using this new Publish Blueprints Directly to Cherwell button, it's going to take a monumentally longer amount of time for this application to send those changes to Cherwell, but it's not going to take that much of your time. You could run this on the server, for example, and then leave it alone and go back to doing work elsewhere if you need to. And that's really the benefit that we're trying to get at with this application. Using this merge blueprints functionality, I mean, that's still going to work. We're not removing that, and we've tested it out on the latest version as well, 9.5, and the beta for 9.6. And using that version of using that functionality, it combines every blueprint together into a single file, and it does so very quickly, so you can then publish one blueprint into your system instead of 400. But if you don't like doing that, because that has problems if you need to go and do rollbacks, potentially, then you can use this Publish Blueprints Directly to Cherwell. It will iterate through every blueprint in this list, no matter how many you have, and will publish them into Cherwell using the command line interface. And again, we're going to have this highlighted in our release notes, but whether you want to scan these, if you want to scan every blueprint, uncheck these two boxes. If you only want to scan the last blueprint, check this box. If you don't want to scan any blueprints, check this box. So in order to cancel this, we're going to make sure that this checkbox for Show Console allows canceling is checked, and then we're going to publish directly to Cherwell. And here, you just click that little X mark on the console that shows up. And that's it. You'll actually see an error message show up here that says Publish didn't complete, canceling the rest of the publishes. It doesn't cycle through the rest there, and this error message will show up whether there's an issue with scanning, whether there's an issue with actually publishing. If an error message comes up, that's basically what's going to happen. Is it finishes or it stops wherever it left off, and then the rest of the items, you would have to either publish those later. There's a message here that says if it's really important that you went through every one of them and there was an error, you're going to have to roll back any of the items that were published. But if you need to, you click this Publish Rollbacks button, you click Publish Directly to Cherwell, you check your environment, and from there, it'll go from the last one in the list backwards from the rollback, or using the rollback for each file. And that's all there is to it. I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to close this. That's all we really have for this video. This should be up on our store page by the time we air this video. If it's not, it will be soon. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to email me at doug@defeditsoftware.com. You can also reach out to us through our website. There is a contact form at the bottom of it. If you don't like using contact forms, there is a little pop-up chat at the bottom right. It shouldn't be an annoying pop-up chat, but it is there. Thanks.